All right, hello class. This is Mr. Whibby, and today we're going to go over some important principles from the U.S. Constitution. So as a student, you will be able to explain the important principles of the U.S. Constitution. Let's go ahead and go to the essential questions. Number one, what is tyranny? What constitutional principles best prevents tyranny in the United States? Number two, what is a liberty that is very important to you? Number three, what is federalism and how is it different from democracy? Number four, why is it important to have an amendable constitution? All right, so these essential questions, as we're going through the PowerPoint, I want you guys to write down and think about these essential questions, and you should be able to answer all four of these essential questions. All right, so let's go ahead and get started. The founding fathers of the United States created a democratic government that would allow citizens to determine how they would be ruled. The founders wanted to prevent tyranny, or the abuse of power by a person or people in the government. There is a theme or connection to many of the principles that make up the Constitution. The principles of the Constitution are linked to preventing the abuse of power in the government and ensuring that the United States would never have a powerful ruler like a dictator. All right, so the first concept that we're going to talk about is a limited government. What is a limited government? Limited government. The powers of the federal government were limited to those specifically provided in the Constitution. What this means is that whenever the government creates laws, the laws have to abide by the rules that are in the Constitution. The government can't get bigger than the Constitution and violate the principles of the Constitution. Therefore, the Constitution places limitations on our government. All right, why would our founders want to create a limited government whereas the government can only do certain things? Our founders believe that people should have liberties. So what is liberty? Liberty. Individual liberty is the protection of the individual against the tyranny of the government, even if the government represents the majority of the people. The individual citizens should have certain rights that can't be taken away by the government, and that's liberty. Liberty is the rights that you have that can't be taken away by the government. Individualism. People in America are free to flourish without hereditary distinctions, or individuals believe they could rise in society based on their personal merits. Individualism, the idea of individualism lies within having the right to organize ourselves into our own private voluntary associations. So we have our ideas, we have the things that we want to do, and that's protected. Laissez-faire. Laissez-faire is the idea that the government should have a hands-off approach to economics within a country. The individual owners of capital should be able to determine what he or she does with that capital, with little to no government regulation. So, as it pertains to economics, laissez-faire promotes the idea of individualism, as well as limited governments and government having only so much authority over the individual's life and money and economic activity. So here is one of a major important constitutional concept: republicanism. Republicanism is based on the republic form of government, which is a democratic government where representatives are elected by the people to vote on their behalf. So a Republican form of government is when people elect senators to represent them and to make laws for them. That's republicanism. Another concept that's very important is popular sovereignty. Popular sovereignty is when the people are sovereign, thus they hold the supreme power. The powers of the government comes from the consent of the people. Therefore, the laws should reflect the majority. So, popular sovereignty is based on the idea that majority rules. That whenever a law is passed, it should only be passed if majority of the people believes that it should be a law. The next concept that we have is federalism. Federalism. The authors of the U.S. Constitution create a federal republic. The powers of the government were divided between the national government and the states. State governments continue to enjoy control over local matters such as education and the passing of laws defining most crimes. So a federalist form of government, a federalism, has the federal government separated from state and local governments. And those governments have the authority or the right to pass laws specifically based on what is written in the Constitution. The next thing that we have, the next concept that we have is separation of powers. Within separation of powers, the authors of the U.S. Constitution decided to divide the powers of the federal government amongst three separate branches: the Congress, the President, and the Supreme Court. Now, separation of powers, basically you would have like checks and balances. So each of the three branches would be ensured not to become too powerful to raise up a tyrant or a person that would abuse political power. And here we go with checks and balances. So checks and balances is to prevent any one branch of government from becoming too powerful. The Constitution gave each branch of government ways to stop or check the other branches. The Supreme Court turned out to be especially important because it made sure that the other branches respected the Constitution. Now, since the Supreme Court was important in doing that, we have to talk about our Constitution amendments. To amend means to be able to change. So the Constitution could be amended or changed to take into account important changes. Kind of redundant. Yeah, I said it twice. This allows the Constitution to adjust to changes of time and attitudes in society. So amendments are important because it ensures that the Constitution will reflect the people and the times that they're living in. So, as you guys know, our Constitution was written in 1700s. Now that we are in the 2020s, there is way more technology. People think and act differently. Therefore, in order for the Constitution to change and reflect the people in the country, it's amendable. It's changeable. And that's it for today. Go ahead, log on to Google Classroom and answer the open-ended questions. Have a blessed day.